Over to you.
Thank you very much. Well, I'm so excited to be here, everyone. I just wanted to say, if you're not feeling too scared of me, you can kind of come forward and sit slightly closer. There's only a handful of us here today, so definitely like come in a little bit, come in a little bit. It's okay. I'm not gonna bite. Yeah, I'm colloquially known as Ryan for that little thanks for that little shout out. I was trained with the other two Ryans, Ryan Lay and Ryan Lalu. So you can call me Ryan as well. I do answer to Ryan. So yeah, we're going to be talking about how we can actually help our hackers use AI well. I know this is kind of a bit of a follow-on from what Swift has been saying. Hopefully I don't overlap too much. I'm really excited about this. I think we've got two specific things that we kind of want to cover. And the first is, how can we help hackers use AI as a tool during development? So alongside them, their pair programmer, if you like, and how can we help them build AI projects where the AI is in the implementation that are actually good? Because I think we've probably all seen some which are maybe not that exciting, and we'd like to see more really innovative projects. So a little bit of an overview. I'm going to do a bit of an introduction. I'll introduce myself properly in just a second, don't worry. We'll talk a bit about why AI even matters. I think we kind of covered that with Swift, which is really cool. I bet some of you still think, oh, AI is kind of useless. I've tried to use it and it just kind of sucks. But I actually think there's a bit of a balance here. And so we'll talk about that. And then we'll talk about the good bits and the bad bits for us as developers and also hackathons with respect to AI. And then we'll talk about some really practical stuff, what we can actually do as organizers. And that's probably, hopefully, where we're going to spend most of our time. Cool. So who am I? Why should you care about what I have to say? I'm an MLH coach, you can probably tell. I've been to 20 odd hackathons, mostly in Europe, although I've been to one in the US and one in Canada. So thank you for having me there. But I'm actually here speaking mostly as an organizer. I organize at a hackathon called Hack. It's from a university called Durham University. It's in the north of England. I'm realizing that probably no one knows what Durham is. That's okay. If you want some stickers from Hack, come and grab some after. But yeah, so those are kind of like my hackathon credentials. I'm also studying for my master's. I'm looking at scalable evaluation methodologies for AI. So I'm pretty interested in this kind of thing, like how we use AI, how we use it robustly and rigorously. And I've done some other kind of internship experience with that too. So hopefully I'll give you some food for thought. All right. Great. So does AI even matter? This is probably a question in our heads. Probably you think it does, right? You're here. So I've got some questions for you. Let's put some hands up. Who explicitly at your hackathon, or if you haven't organized yet, plans to do this, who tells their judges to ask about AI usage specifically? Can we have some hands up? Okay, we've got like maybe 6 or so hands up. Okay, interesting, interesting. Does anyone mention AI in your hackathon rules? Okay, yeah, another like handful of hands. Who gives out AI access at their hackathon? Do anyone provide it as a tool or a technology? Okay, slightly more hands. Cool, cool, cool. Who gives out AI resources or guidance? Okay, yeah, we've got a few hands around as well. Okay, cool, right. So that's good for me to know, and hopefully we'll talk about some of those questions and like why they may be interesting. Let's look at some examples of AI outputs first. Like, is it really that capable? We've got some interesting ones here. How many R's in strawberry? 0. Okay, well, maybe I'm being unfair, right? This is a common trick. AI is normally pretty good, right? What about for programming? What about for programming? Yeah, I mean, uh, the bug is you. I mean, maybe true, right? You know what? We're just not giving it enough thinking time. We need to give it more thinking time. So, like, that's a lot of thinking time. Okay. Well, yeah, maybe. Uh, okay. So I have deleted all the relevant files. I'm truly sorry. There is nothing left of this failed project. Okay. So AI is clearly not perfect. You've probably all experienced, like, maybe not to this extent, but something a little bit like this. You thought, oh, actually, like, sometimes it just really doesn't quite get what I want it to do. However, Despite that, actually, we're seeing some really interesting trends, and I know Swift has touched on this, so I'll speed through these, but we're seeing new code at top companies. So Google, Meta, Microsoft is increasingly AI generated. So 30% at Google is the kind of stat that they've calculated. And we're actually seeing that the kind of uptake in developers more generally is also pretty high. So 84% of developers, according to a survey, said that they either use or plan to use AI in their workflow. And we see that developers using Copilot finish their tasks 58.5% faster, which is pretty big numbers, right? And so we've kind of got to this first like thing that we should identify, which is AI is kind of significant. And you probably know this already. You're here, you've listened to Swift. That's great. And I actually want to say that this is good news. And there are some key things which I've kind of highlighted here. These are, I think, the three biggest things which make it actually really great for developers, nicely kind of little summarized in little boxes. First of all, it is beginner friendly, right? AI does allow beginners to build a bit quicker, and it helps them to learn quicker. What this actually means, in my opinion, practically at your hackathon, is that beginners will finish projects, right? I bet you've probably been to hackathons where people haven't finished, even if they stay to the end, maybe it doesn't work, and they're a little bit demotivated, and you can see them being a bit downcast, and that's, really heartbreaking to see. And what we want people to be doing when they are at a hackathon is finishing and going, wow, I built something. I'm so excited to do this again. So it's really important for motivation. It's encouraging if they can finish a project, and AI is something that can help them do that. The next thing that I want to point out is rapid prototyping. You can build MVPs even quicker. I know some people think this is like cheating. They're getting a head start. It's not fair. What I want to say to this is that if you're a painter, right, before you do all of your painting, you probably sketch it out with a pencil, right? And this is how I think about AI. AI is helping you do your sketch really fast, right? You're doing your sketch in a flash, in a handful of seconds. And I don't think that's cheating, right? It's giving you a way to just get started really fast, and so you can flesh out and get really into the painting bit with the colors and so on, which you really want to do. And this kind of leads into the next point, that actually AI allows you to focus on what you want to do as a developer. This is the kind of creativity idea. It kind of, in my opinion, allows you to zoom out, and so you don't get stuck writing repetitive code, your boilerplate stuff. It's great in that sense. And I think this is a point to highlight. Again, I know Swift has kind of covered this a little bit, but when we think about what a hackathon is it elite code competition? Probably not, right? Probably not. And so there's so much more at a hackathon than just writing, the most optimal, efficient code. And so AI, in my opinion, is really awesome because it allows us to focus on the important stuff. And I've, put a little snippet here of like my view on actually what it allows us to do and what it means to be a developer. Cool. The next thing that I want to point out, and I know I've just spoken a bit about, AI as a development tool, but let's talk about AI in implementation. There are some really cool AI projects. This is a really awesome one that I've seen. It's called Wayfinder, and it's a game where you kind of overcome little obstacles to get through like a little maze. And in doing so, you have to scan real life objects, and it uses an LLM to process them and identify them, and then to decide whether or not you overcome the obstacles. So for example, you might scan in some keys, and then you might get to a locked door, and you can use the keys to open the door. But it's got like, more interesting like machines which like reverse your object, so it decides on the opposite of whatever your object is. Don't know what that would be for keys. And I think, this is like a really interesting project, and there are so many like this which are not just a wrapper around an LLM. And this is the kind of thing that I like to see. I love to see things like make me go, wow, I wouldn't have thought of doing that. It's really fun. It's really interactive. This is great. I'm sure we would all love to see more projects like these too. But you've probably also experienced some not so great stuff. People blindly pasting into ChatGPT, using an LLM as a proverbial monkey on a typewriter. Probably an LLM is more likely to write good code than a monkey on a typewriter is to write the complete works of Shakespeare. But I don't think that's the best way to develop with AI, and hopefully you don't either. We don't really want to encourage this. Clicking accept blindly without thinking about what's happening is not really sustainable or reliable in any way. And you've probably also seen your AI slot projects, right? Your ChatGPT wrappers. The one that I really I don't want to say hate, but the one that I see more often than I'd like perhaps is the investment advice chatbots. Has anyone seen these where people will be like, this is like an investment advice chatbot and they don't have any underlying model apart from the LLM. They sometimes don't even have like proper data in there. They don't rag it. Like it's not really built with an understanding of what's actually happening. And this is probably not something that we really want to see. And those are our kind of big challenges, right? So hopefully by this point, we've got to the same like little idea that, yeah, AI is not perfect, but it's really important as developers, and we need to encourage good use. We don't want to see things like those. And it has a lot of value, which we want to encourage. So these little challenges and traps, I think it would be really great if we could talk for, let me check the time. Okay, we'll talk for 3 minutes in our little rows or groups. If you don't have a buddy, find a buddy. Everyone's really friendly, don't worry. And think of some really concrete things that you think you could do that would help approach and stop these things, right? How can we help hackers use AI well in development and also in implementation? So I'm gonna give you 2-3 minutes, chat in your groups. We'll talk about it in a minute afterwards. And I want like specific concrete things. So Swift spoke about like demos and things like that. Come up with more ideas and be really specific. Are we happy with that? Yeah? Okay, I'll give you 2 to 3 minutes. Go. Okay. I hope you've all had good chats. I know that was very quick. You can talk more later. Let's all come back now. Let's all come back now and share what we've thought about. Does anyone want to volunteer themselves to say one of their ideas? Okay, we've got some hands up already. Right. Should we get started at the front?
I'm just in it for the shirt. No, I'm kidding. The one we had was workshops for beginners on AI, kind of repeating a lot of the things that you said in your slides, Area to kind of highlight specifically that AI isn't just a monkey typing behind a keyboard for you. You
Hmm.
need to do corporate things like in
Awesome.
workshops on beginner.
That's great. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Okay, more ideas? We'll head down here. I know this one was really enthusiastic. I've got time for maybe, I reckon we can do 2, 3 more.
We make a little joke during opening, like we better not see any ChatGPT rappers. Judges don't really like that, but that's like a little joke that we make. It's an intentional joke. But on a more serious note, a lot of our hackathon goers are beginners. We were talking about how, because they're beginners, they don't really know what types of products have been built before at hackathon. So what we like to do is we showcase last year's winners. Our
Mm,
judging criteria looks like just like something that's more out of the box. And
that's really cool. That's really cool. Thank you. Yeah, should we go to the front here? And I know we've got a hand up over here next.
So we came up with that there should be clear descriptions about what the generated code should look like. So to achieve that, you would need a solid understanding of the project and what it should look like.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Giving examples is really important. Okay, hands up. We've got one here. And then we'll come to the back over there.
Yeah, so I think especially building on the ideas of like workshops that we've had is like I feel like a lot of the reason people produce the like AI stop things is because they don't really know how to build good Gen AI products and they don't know of the kind of techniques they should be using. So I think it's really important to teach people things like RAG, but the board pods things so that they have the tools they need to build cool things with Gen AI. Don't just be rappers.
Yeah, so true. So true. Okay, I think we had one hand up at the back. Well, that'll be the last one. Let's go over there.
Thank you so much, Brooks. Ticket. I think after link that we discussed, was it really like having workshops like showing hackers what can be built apart from like the like GBD wrappers? Another will be to make it clear in terms of how judging will be done, in terms of AI use, in terms of like how GBD wrapper projects might be judged compared to reality project that uses AI. Because any AI was be used, it cannot like you cannot stop hackers from using it, but you can definitely tell them that this is how judging would be done. I think that is something that's got talked about to happen, but like making it clear, like certain aspects of the judging could uh tell them like thing out.
Yeah, yeah, that's so great. Okay, thank you so much for all of your ideas. I think these are really great. Actually, you've covered some of the ideas that I had, which is awesome. And I think I've got some which you haven't thought of yet. So hopefully that'll be really useful for you too. Okay, so first of all, I thought it was useful to think, okay, what does good human AI development look like? When we're working as a person using an AI as a tool to write code, what do we kind of want to think about it as? The first thought that I had was treating your AI like an intern, getting it to do the boilerplate, those repetitive tasks. This kind of feeds into that rapid prototyping, creativity angle that I spoke about earlier. It allows you to focus on the important stuff and kind of get started much quicker. And the next thing that I thought about is having a rubber duck is really great. I'm sure everyone loves rubber ducks here. Having a rubber duck that can kind of talk back and help you when you're explaining your thought process is really useful. One that can actually kind of almost prompt you, right? When you're explaining, okay, this is what I'm thinking about, this is what I'm thinking about. This is when I'm like transparently, when I'm as a coach going around and helping people debug, often what I'll get them to do is just explain it to me like I'm a rubber duck. And then I'll think, okay, yeah, have you thought about this? And all I'm really doing is pointing out their own thought process to them. So having this smarter rubber duck, I think, is really great. And again, this goes back to being really helpful for beginners, or if you're learning a new language, right, syntax and things like that. Whenever you're learning something new, I think this is useful. So that educational side. And so jumping back to these three things, we can see how our two ideas here actually directly feed into what we kind of want to see the benefits of AI as. And I've got some little like summaries of the big benefits, in my opinion, here, which is basically, yeah, it's more efficient, more educational, and hopefully more enjoyable. Thinking about the AI intern box in particular, but also the kind of the smarter duck, when you're pair programming with a person, a common way of doing it is having like a navigator and a driver, right? So you have your driver who writes the code and the navigator who maybe says, okay, what about this? Like orchestrating it a little bit behind the scenes. And when you think about it, having this kind of thought process when you're using AI is maybe not a bad idea. So that's maybe my first thought on like, okay, this is maybe something we want to aim for, right? These are the benefits that we want, and these are two ways of thinking about it. And so here are some of my first thoughts on how we can do this as organizers for development specifically. So not the implementation yet, but just the development. And the first thing that I want to point out is if you make a bunch of rules, you will lose the original hackathon spirit, right? If you say no AI, first of all, it's not really enforceable. And second of all, hackathons have always been around about having a group of people who are super excited to build stuff in the same room, building stuff. And if people are super excited to build with AI, I don't think we should stop them from doing that. I actually read an article from Hack the North recently called Are Hackathons Dying? And they touched on like a whole bunch of different bits and pieces. But one of their suggestions was that there's been a bit of a loss of fun and collaboration at hackathons. People are focusing on the kind of like competitive side of things a little bit more, building like more kind of career-y projects. And I think that's pretty understandable given the kind of career climate at the moment. But as I said earlier, fundamentally, hackathons are not the same thing as a competitive programming competition, right? It's not elite code competition. And if you want to change the use of AI, right, if you want to see AI used in a better way, it's not going to be through a bunch of rules. And so this is my suggestion. And this is actually my suggestion for any change that you want to see anywhere, really, at hackathons and more widely. If you want to see change, look at the culture, not the compliance. And that's kind of the little summary that I've put up here. And this is probably the biggest takeaway from the talk that I can give you. If you encourage your hackers to do things by creating a good culture, it will work. Things will change and people will be happy about it. People will be excited. People won't feel like you're, putting them in a box. And so there are several ways to do this that I've kind of pointed out. The first one is make it fun. I think this is really important. Someone said somewhere, I can't remember who it was, kind of touched on this a little bit, but if you make it fun, people will want to do it. AI bug bingo is like one of my ideas. Have a little bingo sheet and say whoever can get, 5 AI bugs generated by AI code, they get like, I don't know, a premium sticker or like a tiny little bit of stash or even just like bragging rights, but make it a competition. I think this is really cool because what you're actually doing is you're getting them to think about the output that they get from their LLMs, right? When you're working with an AI, sometimes the temptation can be just to click accept on everything, right? This is one of the failures that we spoke about earlier, which we don't want to see. And so making people think about what they're doing intentionally in a way that is fun, maybe a little bit competitive, gets them into the community at your event in person is super important. Having anonymous confessions about like, oh, I did this with AI, I'm embarrassed about it, and maybe having that like on a rolling screen somewhere, I think this is another fun way of doing it. And again, you're getting people conscious of their AI usage. The next thing that I want to point out, and again, someone pointed this out too, judging. Judging is super important. I think you need to be careful when you're doing this, right? Reward good use of AI and mark down bad use of AI, right? It seems pretty simple. Don't just penalize it indiscriminately, but be really clear about like what you're looking for and why. And you can do that by demonstrating how to use it well. And this is, again, another thing that we've touched on. Providing resources and guidance. I think this was kind of the majority of ideas that people spoke about. Like any tool, you can't expect hackers just to know how to use AI well. There's not like when you're born, you don't have some intuition on like how to use AI. People sometimes think like, oh, you just talk to it like a person, and yet you can, and you might get some good results. But actually, that is not really using it well. We kind of know that, hopefully, and there are ways to use it better. And so teaching that is super important for us to do as organizers. We can do that, again, loads of people have suggested things like demos, like workshops, example projects, repositories, which have like, a good setup to begin with. These are all things that you can do. One thing I want to point out here is mentor engagement. And I've had some people raise this to me in the past, and maybe it's something you've thought of too, or maybe not. If everyone is debugging with their little AI friend, maybe they're not speaking to mentors, potentially maybe they're not speaking to sponsors about their technical problems. And that's actually really not good for the hackers. The hackers should speak to sponsors because it, furthers their career, right? It opens them up to opportunities. The sponsors want to speak to your hackers, right? And so you kind of don't really want people just to be only like sat at their computer the whole time at their hackathon, not talking to anyone, right? And this goes, not just for mentorship, but also just the community as a whole. My suggestion would be proactive, demonstrate to the hackers how to collaborate as a community, how to go and talk to other people, right? You should be doing this as organizers. I would suggest you do this as mentors. Encourage your mentors to do this. Hopefully they are comfortable doing this already. But go around and speak to the hackers. Go and ask them, like, what are you doing? Like, how is this going? Or have you thought about this? Oh, that's a big problem. Like, consider this. Do all of this, right? Your hackathon coach should be doing this. I 100% expect they will be. And it is really important to model to your hackers what you want them to do, right? You want them to be like sharing ideas between teams, right? You want this community, this collaboration. And if your mentors are a bit shy, you could make it fun, right? You could give your mentors like stickers to give out or like high value swag. If someone asks a really good question, encourage your hackers to go to your mentors in that way too. So incentives always are great. All right. So let's think about the other side of things. We've spoken a little bit about the development. Let's think about the implementation. So what does a good AI project look like? And I've cheated here. These are like two antonyms. So I don't know if that's really describing what a good AI project looks like as opposed to describing what we don't want to see. But really, the first thing that I've highlighted is we don't really want to see projects which use AI as some infallible source of truth, right? One project I've seen is a search engine which flags the percentage of AI content on a website, right? And they used an LLM to do this, and I was like, this is not actually robust or reliable, So we want to see projects that use AI in a way that is meaningful and actually like an appropriate use of it with good validation and so on. Like, again, like any other tool. The other thing that we don't want to see is, wrappers. And one like little heuristic, one way of thinking about this that I like is if you could get the same functionality from a project by just interacting, at chatgpt.com, any chatbot interface, if you could get the same functionality out as this project, it's probably not a good project. There will be exceptions to that, but like as a general rule of thumb, I think this is a good idea to think about. Like, okay, could I just reproduce this project in a ChatGPT interface online? If I can, maybe not so great. And so what we want to see is we want to see something realistic, something we can imagine as a real product, something we would potentially use. We want it to be something. Oh, I've tabbed out. There we go. Okay. We want to see something unique as well, something which we think, oh, I've never actually thought of it that way. And we want to see something exciting, something that you want to try out, right? If you're judging a project and you think, like, wow, I want to try this, that's really good. And it's kind of something we'd hope to see from AI projects just as much as any other project. And so I've got some more ideas here on how we can encourage this. Okay. And I think this leads on really well from the development side of things, but leading by example is kind of the summary of this. The first thought that I want to talk through is ideation. helping your hackers come up with good ideas in the first place will give them such a good foundation for the rest of what they do. If they come up with an idea in the first place, which again could be reproduced in a ChatGPT interface, it's not going to get better over the weekend. So doing that early on, I think, is a really good idea. How am I on time? Okay, I'm low on time. I'm going to speed through because I want to get to my last slide. But basically, judging, again, providing specific questions for your judges to ask if you're not confident that your judges understand how AI works, right? Hopefully they do, but if they don't, you can give them specific questions like this. How would you know if your model failed after deployment? How are you evaluating it, right? If a team haven't thought about this, chances are it's not an appropriately validated use of AI. And giving specific AI prizes out is a really good way, having your tracks or challenges or equivalent at your hackathon, and having criteria in there, being detailed and specific. I think the idea here about the projects that won last year and talking about like why they did, I think is a really cool idea. I think that's really great. Okay, so next steps, I want to give you some actionable things to do. And this is kind of like my little pipeline on what I would do if I was you as an organizer. And firstly, I think you need to think about what you want to see. I've given a bit of an overview on what I think a good AI project looks like and what good development looks like. But you should think about this for yourself. Think about the stakeholders that you have at your hackathon. Do you have sponsors? Do you have sponsors who use LLMs all the time? They probably want to see AI used in certain ways as well, right? And think about also your attendees themselves. And Swift's spoken a lot about, as developers, how we should be working with AI. I think thinking about what you want for your hackers, the opportunities that you want to give them, will help you set clear ideas for what you want out of your hackathon too. And next, I want to talk about pre-event. First of all, position. Make it really clear to your hackers like that you're excited to see them using AI. I think this is a good idea. State how you're going to judge it. Say, we're going to reward understanding and originality with a strong focus on robustness, carefully evaluated usage, and so on. Publish 2 to 3 AI projects on your website, right? These are things that you can do. I mean, you can, do the same thing for any other tool, really. If you want to see more hardware projects, you can have a section on your website about like, here's a place to get started on hardware. Here are some hardware projects that we think are really cool. Use these. You can, blend the two, have like a computer vision project. Swift spoke about that, so I'll leave that there, but I think that's a really good idea. You can provide resources. Again, this is a pre-event thing to do. I've got like a list of some examples that you might want to do. I'll speed through them really quick. You could have a how to hack with AI guide that describes how to pair program with an AI. You could have an ideation workbook, right, with thought-provoking questions. You could have in there, right, would this still be useful without chatbot AI, UI even, as a prompt, right? If you take away, for example, the LLM part of your project, is it still a good project? These are questions which you can have in your little ideation workbook. You could have a failure modes cheat sheet, a list of common things where LLMs break down in development. You could have a prompt flowchart or a prompt cheat sheet with lists of good prompts to use or how to structure a prompt. You could have a starter repository with documentation specifically. You could have like a prompts record file just empty in the starter repository for hackers to put in the prompts that they're using. They could also automate this. And that's a really great way for them to be intentional about the prompts that they're putting in. And you should also, I really recommend this, have like a mentor and a judge, like playbook, a guide. Probably you should have this anyway. I would really recommend it, but have a section in there on the use of AI and how to encourage and mentor people and so on with that. And next, challenges as discussed. Think about those in your pre-event. And then on the day, you want to be doing this modeling and mentorship kind of framework. So model in your interactions with your hackers. This is how you create the culture, right? Lead by example, define what originality is, describe how your judging works, model everything that you want to see. Again, demos and workshops are really great examples for this. I think fun mini events, right? The bug bingo idea. You could even have, for example, like a red team hour. So near the end of your hackathon, maybe encourage people to all come into a room and see if they can break each other's projects, right? Specifically, maybe, can you prompt someone's project and like break it? I think that's a really fun thing to do, especially if people kind of wrapping up towards the end, they've got some time to kill. That's a great way to build community, get people laughing, also get people like fixing bugs in each other's code, right? This is cool. And then mentorship, again, give them prompts, right? Hopefully you've prepped this in advance. Get your mentors to ask, what model are you using? What's the context window? How many calls are you expecting to do per minute? If you take away the LLM, what is left? And again, finally, we've spoken about judging a lot, but yeah, I think thinking about the criteria that you're looking for, the questions that your judges are asking, and then the checks that you have in place is super important. Okay, and I've got some little summaries up here, but I'm just going to skip over them. This is maybe the most useful one because I didn't go so much detail here. But yeah, checking the robustness of AI usage, I think, is important too. And if your judges, again, aren't so familiar with what robust AI usage looks like, you can just give them questions to ask and guidance in advance. Okay, so I'm gonna very basically, the conclusion is what I've already said. This is maybe a nice summary of some methods that you can try. And these are my recommendations. I'll leave this up if people want a photo of it. I can see some cameras up. But basically there, I'm done. I'm super excited to talk about this more. So if you want to come and chat with me, you can do so. I am dead out of time, but I'll be floating around, I think, at the back. I think that's the best way of doing it. I don't want to hold you back from getting to other bits and pieces. So thank you all very much. I'm Quinn, and I'd love to meet you all. Come and speak to me.